Who was Lubna of Córdoba? Unveiling the forgotten intellectual of medieval Spain. Genre: historical biography, narrative non-fiction. Setting: 10th century Cordoba, Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. In the winding halls of the Umayyad Palace in 10th century Cordoba, where marble columns cast moon-shaped shadows and the scent of orange blossoms hung heavy in the air, there once walked a woman whose brilliance rivaled the stars. Her name was Lubna. She penned poetry that made caliphs weep. She calculated equations that confounded male scholars. She organized one of the most advanced libraries in medieval Europe. And then, history nearly erased her. Almost. This is the story of a woman born into the golden heart of Al-Andalus, who became one of the greatest intellectual minds of her time, and whom time almost forgot. Lubna was born sometime in the early 10th century, likely of servile origin. Some chroniclers say she was a Mawla, a freedwoman of the Umayyad court. Others whisper that she was born into slavery and freed due to her astonishing intelligence. But what is certain is this. Lubna grew up within the walls of the palace of Caliph Al-Hakam III, in a Cordoba that was not merely a city, but a luminous jewel of civilization. It was the most cultured capital in Europe, a place where Jews, Christians and Muslims debated philosophy under the same dome. As a child, Lubna was drawn not to the silks or spices of the palace, but to its scrolls, its books, its whispering halls of parchment and papyrus. She learned to read Arabic fluently, then Latin, then Greek. She devoured texts on astronomy, arithmetic, logic, linguistics, and poetry. By the time she was a teenager, she had become one of the court's prized minds, an anomaly in a world where women, even noble ones, were expected to remain in the shadows. The Palace Library of Cordoba was legendary. Tens of thousands of volumes were stored in its endless halls, more than all of Christian Europe combined at the time. But they did not organize themselves. That monumental task fell in part to Lubna. She was no mere copyist. She was a mathematician, calligrapher, editor, translator, and cataloger all in one. Chroniclers of Al-Andalus, such as Ibn Bashkawal and al-Makari, describe her as a woman of encyclopedic knowledge who personally traveled to Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad to obtain rare manuscripts. She translated classical Greek texts into Arabic, corrected scribal errors, and debated scholars, men twice her age, with the composed logic of a seasoned philosopher. She knew Euclidean geometry, could chart planetary movements, and once supposedly solved a lunar calendar conundrum that had stumped the court's astrologers for weeks. She wasn't just curating a library, she was building a legacy of knowledge that would fuel Andalusian learning for generations. Chapter 3. The Caliph's Shadow. Lubna's rise coincided with the reign of Al-Hakam II, the son of Abd al-Rahman III, a ruler famously obsessed with books. Under Al-Hakam, the Cordoba library swelled to over 400,000 volumes. It became the intellectual capital of the Islamic world. Lubna became his personal secretary and chief scribe. She was known to dictate and compose official correspondence. Her calligraphy was so exquisite it was said, the ink danced for her. Her poetry, lost now but mentioned in passing by contemporaries, was rumored to blend Andalusian lyricism with philosophical depth. But her brilliance came with a cost. Many scholars, especially those from the conservative Maliki legal school, despised the idea of a woman wielding such power in matters of state and science. They called her a singularity, a polite insult meaning she was brilliant despite being a woman. Still, Al-Hakam defended her. She remained his confidant, the keeper of his intellectual kingdom. And then darkness. After Al-Hakam's death in 976, his young son Hisham II became caliph at the tender age of 11. Real power fell to Al-Mansur ibn Abi Amir al-Mansur, a ruthless warlord who shifted the court's priorities from scholarship to expansionism and military glory. Al-Mansur closed libraries, dismissed scholars, and silenced dissent. Lubna disappears from the historical record around this time. We do not know if she died naturally, was pushed into exile, or erased deliberately. Her books, if she wrote any under her own name, are gone. Her poetry, if ever compiled, has turned to dust. What remains are fragments, mentions by other scholars, a sentence here, a verse there, a breath between lines in old manuscripts. Lubna, it seems, became a ghost in her own library. Today, historians and feminist scholars are finally beginning to stitch her story together. She's being re-examined not as an exotic footnote in male-dominated chronicles, but as a towering intellect of the Islamic Golden Age. In her legacy, we see a vision of a different medieval world, a Cordoba where women debated in lecture halls, where science and spirituality walked hand in hand, and where a once enslaved girl could rise to become the scribe of civilization. Lubna's story is not just about memory. It is about what we choose to forget, and who we are when we remember. In 2011, a plaque was quietly installed in the Andalusian city of Cordoba. It reads, "To Lubna of Córdoba, mathematician, poet, librarian, a light among scholars. Perhaps someday her poetry will be found. Perhaps her equations are buried in forgotten footnotes of manuscripts waiting to be rediscovered. But even if they are not, her ink has soaked into history. Her mind echoes in every library that stands against the dark." Lubna of Córdoba was never lost. She was merely waiting to be read again. Let ink flow where swords once ruled, so the daughters of the future may write their names in fire, inspired by the legacy of Lubna of Córdoba.